Notice of public meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, Texas Open Meetings Act, notice is hereby given to the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, will convene a workshop and a special meeting on Monday, September 17, 2012, at 5:45 p.m. and 6 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of Brownsville City Hall, located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas. Workshop item A, discussion regarding the Brownsville Community Improvements Corporation's fiscal year 2013 budget.
Rachel, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? Great. Okay, so before you, you will see a printout of the spreadsheet that appears on the screen. I just want to go over a few of the broad changes. Overall, there are no significant increases in or changes within our budget. The administrative budget increased by 21%. If you look at your printout, you will see that this is attributed to item number 19. The BCIC audit is, we budgeted $37,000. The proposal the board accepted was for $26,000. We're going to just go ahead and add another extra 10 in case there's any extra work that needs to be done, but we don't anticipate it. And there's also, if you go down to the printout before you, you will see item number 20. There's an increase of $12,000 that we're going to pay in rent to the City of Brownsville to stay in the office building, and we've increased our administrative in line item 25, our administrative budget by $15,000 for the purchase of equipment. In terms of projects, we are giving $100,000 more this year, which amounts to an increase of 13%, and our total debt service is now reduced by 2.2%. Our total fiscal year 2013 budget is estimated at, if you scroll down to line item number 50, $3.76 million. Sorry. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Looks like a laydown here there, Rachel. Everybody understands quite a bit of expenditures on this particular project.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Okay, so that took shorter than expected. We do have about 10 minutes before we start our regular meeting. We'll take a recess at this time, start at meeting at 6 o'clock. And that will be the first action item, would be the budget that was just presented.
Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, and indivisible.
Our invocation, Pastor John. I know him.
I didn't bring my blue jeans today, so
I know, and I know that's why I didn't recognize you at first. But no.
let's pray. Let's pray together. Father, we love you and thank you for the privilege you give us to be in the privilege, Father, to have you here and to bless the decisions that are made. And I pray that we would want to do what's best for our city and for the people of our city. And I know, Lord, that you've given us these city commissioners, and we pray you'd give them wisdom and knowledge and discernment in the decisions they're making. And we thank you for our mayor. I pray you'd bless him, and may they be together and desiring to make this the greatest city. And I just thank you, Father, I can be a part of it. So, Lord, to you we give the glory. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor. So,
I have a couple comments before the action item, if that's
okay. Before we get to action items, Commissioner Gowan has a couple of reports.
Just a couple of things. I want to thank the various people that helped with Build a Better Block. We had our third Build a Better Block this past Saturday. Special thanks goes out to Dr. Abu Salim and the group of students from UTB that polished and swept and power washed. The glass at the Market Square was so clear you could see all the way to the other side of the street. It was delightful. I also want to thank the Camille Playhouse for coming out to perform a piece of their play that's going to open on Thursday. And we'll be moving to a different location for the next Better Block to be announced. Second thing is to remind everyone about something that Commissioner Villarreal mentioned last time we met, and that was about the It's Time Texas Community Challenge. If you go to the city website and click on the link, it will take you to the page where you can see how many points we've gained as a community. As of about 4 o'clock, we were in second place behind Garland, Texas by 30 points.
Uh-oh.
We've racked up about 6,600 points. And we still have another month and a half more or less to go. So everyone, please sign up. You can make a statement of support every single day to earn 5 points for the city. Each commissioner can go to the library. Jerry will set it up on Manuel to tape a statement of support for the community challenge. Tony has, I have, John's going to. And each of you, if you can go down there, it will run on COB-TV and also be uplinked into the site.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The library, can we mention the library?
I'm
Sure.
sorry?
The library?
Yes, talk to Manuel.
No, the space.
Okay. Estella, first action item.
Action item number 1, consideration and action regarding the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation's fiscal year 2013 budget.
Does anyone have any questions? We've submitted the paperwork.
Yeah, this was the one we had the workshop, Commissioners. I think, John, it's this item right here, or this piece of paper, yeah, gives you an overall of what their budget is like. Rachel came by on the workshop, but it's pretty much self-explanatory. I will consider a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Rachel. Number 2.
Item number 2, consideration and action to authorize the city manager to execute a service agreement between the City of Brownsville and the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation for fiscal year 2013.
Good morning, Mayor. What we're basically asking is that the City Commission approve the same service agreement as last year with the BCIC, with the exception that the 3 positions which are internalized are now being handled by BCIC. So the transfer for the administrative service fees will be simply set $12,000 per month, or per year, I'm sorry.
I was like, wait a minute.
I'm going like, wait a minute. I think
Dr.
I
McGowan's
missed
eyebrows
something.
went off at the same time. No, with the exception that it'll be $12,000 a year, which will cover all the other administrative services which the city provides to the BCIC.
Anybody have any questions of our city attorney? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 3, consideration and action regarding the Brownsville Sports Park maintenance agreement with the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation for fiscal year 2013.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, this is the Brownsville Sports Park Maintenance Agreement. The BCIC has agreed to provide $550,000 in terms of the service, but there are certain conditions that it wishes to put on this. You will recall that last year the city and the BCIC entered into an agreement which provided for the transfer of the park. And the BCIC agreed at that point to set a yearly amount in its own discretion, which the BCIC would provide to the city every year. In looking at the operation of the park, I think the BCIC is looking for ways that the operation of the park might be improved and it might be run more efficiently for the benefit of the taxpaying public. It's okay, I forget that. And so what they would like to see is basically 3 things as a condition of the $550,000. First, what they would ask that the city, within the next 6 months, go out for competitive proposals for the professional operation and management services of the park. And then the city, they would like to see status reports just on how this is coming along over the next 6 months. And that after 6 months, they would have the right to terminate the monthly payments if they saw fit after a 6-month window. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, look, we're willing to give the city $550,000 a year, but what we're looking for is we're looking for better ways to do things. So as a condition of receiving that $550,000, we would like to see the city explore the possibility by going out for proposals, see what's out there as an option, the ability for some professional management services of the park. So that's the change between this year's agreement and last year's agreement.
Okay.
I didn't have a problem when I saw A and B, which was pretty standard. But when I read C, you know, what confused me, and you did explain it earlier, was that about the after 6 months to terminate the monthly payment. Let me ask you a question. Have we finalized the contract with the BCIC as far as the deeds and all that to the park?
Okay, there's two different issues. One, we finalized the contracts for the transfer.
The transfer of the park?
Yes. However, we haven't finalized the deeds because of pending issues with the construction, which are being resolved. And at that time, the property would be transferred by deed.
I'm trying to be as gentle as possible when I interpret C. And what I'm saying is, okay, BCIC, you've turned over the park to the city. We have agreed. You're asking us to go out. We're providing right now in other words, the maintenance is being funded through BCIC or through the city.
Through BCIC.
And now BCIC wishes for it to be privatized?
Okay, let me restate, I think perhaps a little bit more clearly. We, quote unquote, have never looked at engaging a private management company, which many cities do for their sports complexes. We have asked, as the past board and the current board, to see proposals for a professional management company to see what it costs. We don't have any idea what it would cost in comparison to in-housing the management. It could be that it would be less, could be that it was more. What do they provide for their management company, et cetera, et cetera. We'd like to see those figures. So in the spirit of wanting to do that, to see if we can improve on either the maintenance or the efficiency or maybe increase revenue or some combination of all of the above, we are putting the 6-month stipulation on the city to say in 6 months we really, really do want to see those RFPs.
How many?
Hang on. And the question of what happens after 6 months with respect to us terminating it would only be if the city said, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do the proposals, in which case we're going to have a problem with that.
Okay. How many employees currently are funded under the BCIC? Their salaries are paid through BCIC at the park?
At the park? I don't know. Chris, you could answer that.
My concern is that if we privatize and several employees out there are funded through the BCIC, how many? So what will happen to those 7 employees? Are they going to lose their jobs?
Not necessarily. In many cases, when public-private partnerships happen with the city, those employees are employed by the private company.
But that's not guaranteed, right?
Well, I mean, that's to be determined. Or they can be used, I'm sure, in other parts of the city. I'm sure Chris has plenty of work for them to do in other parks and areas of the city.
Or the private company that may come in, may choose to take them into their corporation.
We had a similar situation earlier this year, and I don't ever want to get caught from the city commission's standpoint to where an employee is having to reapply for his or her job or is losing her job when they were in essence an employee of the city, but they were funded through the BCIC. And they get, so, you know, us having 7 employees at the sports park, you might get picked up, we might transfer you somewhere, we might doesn't give somebody and their family a guarantee that they're going to have their job.
Okay, so what if let's just say, for the sake of an example, one person lost their job, and however, the city gained $250,000, $300,000 more in revenue, which then, of course, improved the debt service of the sports park. So you're saying that that one person who may work at minimum wage or just above was more important to keep them than it is to improve revenue to the city?
Depends on how you look at it.
Well, that's true.
You know, I mean, a person leaving, having worked for years at the city, and leaving and losing their job because we decided, I mean, obviously, on paper, it looks great. But when you send that person home without a job, it affects everybody.
I'm not gonna-
I think the answer is real simple. If you got a good employee who's doing their work, there was always going to be a place for them in the city. If that particular employee is not meeting the standards that we required, then we'll act appropriately. Okay? This is an action item. I'll consider a,
Move to approve. Second.
you got a motion? Okay, I'm sorry. Second? Second?
She did.
Second by Jessica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries.
Public hearing, item number 4, public hearing and action on resolution number 2012-055 to adopt the fiscal year 2013 annual budget and resolving other matters thereof.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Commission, tonight is the day that we're asking the City Commission to adopt the budget for the fiscal year 2013. We've had several public hearings regarding this particular budget that we'll be discussing tonight. I will summarize what we have done the last few weeks, what are the additions, what deductions we've made to the budget that was filed at the City Secretary's office on August the 17th. By law, again, the budget must be at the City Secretary's office for 30 days to give a chance for the public to look at the budget. 30 days have passed. September 17th is here tonight. We've discussed this in the past, that if the city would adopt the effective tax rate of 68.9621, there will be a shortfall. But if the city maintains the rate of 70 cents, 70.0613, and I'll show you tonight that we were able to balance if we maintain the same tax rate that we currently have. And obviously, if the City Commission decides to adopt a higher tax rate, that means that we will have a larger surplus in the budget. And the highest we could go, based according to the law, is the rollback rate, and the rollback rate was 72.1129. The staff is not recommending that the City Commission adopt the rollback rate. We're asking the City Commission to maintain the same tax rate as we have from the prior year, or the current year that we're in right now, which is 700,613. This is just a summary of if the City Commission decides to adopt the effective tax rate. If we adopt the effective tax rate, then you'll have a deficit of 543,277. If you adopt the 70 cents, 70.0613, again, the current rate that we currently have, the budget is balanced. I will summarize on this schedule what has occurred since we met on the August the 28th. We had a surplus of 302,168 if the City Commission would adopt the 70613. But then we had several changes that were made. We made some changes on the public hearing of September 4th, and of course we're also making changes on September the 17th. We have decreased, we started off with, we increased the balance by transferring to Public Works maintenance workers from the Green Division, Fund 44, to the General Fund. So that gave an extra money for the General Fund of $53,033. We decreased the fund balance because we included a property rental at the East Medicine, which is located next to the Cueto building, rental of this property for $30,000. Administrative Tech 1, that's for the animal control, $28,973, and a customer service specialist for the Office of Emergency Management of $34,760. Well, that brought the fund balance to $261,468, again in the black or in the surplus. Since then, we have made other changes to the budget. We've increased the sales tax revenue in order to balance it by $28,207. We did reduce some monies in the contingency account of $66,914, but we added a maintenance supervisor, a carpenter, historic Brownsville Museum air conditioning repairs, a bicycle pedestrian coordinator, an assistant city manager that the position was there, but the funding had not been placed in the past. We went ahead and included the funding this particular year. And then we have an assistant to the mayor or city commission. We are also adding a code enforcement officer that will be funded from the plastic bag environmental fee fund. All these changes that we've made since then, since September 4th, we reduced it by $261,468. So meaning that the budget that's being presented to you tonight is balanced, meaning that the revenues and the expenditures equal. The reserve, if you recall that we have a fund balance policy that we should at least maintain at least a 15% of unassigned fund balance in reserves. If we adopt the 613 or 70 cents, 0613, which is the current rate that we have right now, we'll be at 19% reserves. Again, below the 15%. When we do the calculations, this is something we've talked about in the past. The effective tax rate, if we were to maintain the effective tax rate, obviously the tax rate would decrease from 1.57 from the current tax rate of 7.0613. We're not proposing this. Again, if we would go with the 6896, which we're not proposing, our fund balance will actually go down. We are proposing the 70 cents. Now, when we talk about 70 cents, if you look on the left-hand, upper left-hand corner, you'll see the effective tax rate of 6896.21. This is a rate that we've discussed in the past. That's the same rate that will generate the same revenues that we had last year. But we're proposing a tax rate of 7.0613, which is the same tax rate that we currently have. By law, we have to state that since we're proposing a tax rate of 7.0613, in effect, it is 1.5% above the effective tax rate. If you move to the right, on the upper hand, the tax rate that we adopted in 2011 tax year, which is fiscal year 2012, was 7.0613. We are proposing to maintain the same rate for the fiscal year 2013, which in this case is tax year 2012 because that's when it's being taxed in 2012, but it's for fiscal year 2013. It's 7.0613. Again, if you look at the tax rate from last year, from the tax rate of 2011 to the tax rate of 2012, there's a zero tax increase. As we move down on the right-hand bottom, you'll see the distribution between the general fund or the M&O and the debt service. Right now, if you adopt the 7.0613, 64% or 64.1274% will go to the general fund for maintenance and operations, and the 35.87% would go for debt service. Breaking it down in cents, it's 44.9285 for the M&O or the general fund, and the debt service would keep 25.1328 cents. This is what we're proposing this evening for you to adopt. And I'm going to be moving forward here. And this is something that we discussed earlier. Again, there were some changes from the meeting of August 28th, and we made some changes in December on the 4th, and of course the 9th. And those are the changes that I already went over. Again, we're not proposing the rollback rate. If the City Commission decides to go with the rollback rate, then there's a 4.57% above the effective rate and a 2.93% above the current rate. This is something that, again, we're not proposing. Of course, if we go with the rollback rate, then we're going to have a surplus, a budget excess of revenues over expenses by a little over $1 million, $1,012,000. And this is something we've discussed before as far as rates. We go from the 68.9621 to the 70613. The rate increase is 1.59%. Again, because we have to use the effective tax rate in this calculation. This is what the 700613 will generate, 566,000 more. This is if we include the frozen tax levy. It generates the same amount, 566,352 more in property taxes. Again, we've discussed this before, that several years ago, the City Commission decided to freeze, through an ordinance, to freeze the property tax levies for those over 65. Again, if we would to approve the effective tax rate, that means that the general fund, by approving this, has already lost $504,527, because by law we cannot go back. And once we allowed this tax break to the over 65, that has to stay. And then again, this is a frozen, what we call a frozen tax levy. If you go with the 700613, the loss to the general fund because of the freeze to the over 65 is 559,313.69. This is the number that we would lose by adopting the 700613. If we would go with the rollback rate, their loss would be 661,570. Of course, the more you increase it, the more you lose. That's the reason why the numbers change. Even though we're not proposing for you to adopt a tax rate above the current rate of 70613, if you adopt one, and those are the increases, you adopt the 9621, how much more on the average taxpayer, how much more does he pay? At the end, it shows you the increases. Again, if you were to go with the rollback rate of 721129, the taxpayer would be paying $25.97 on the average. This is on the average homestead, which is in current year, it's $82,415. The current budget, if you include all the funds, I've discussed general fund, but if you include all the other funds, starting with convention and tourism, community development, the debt service, and if you look at debt service is the second largest fund, followed by the general fund. And then you have other funds there. Total budget, and these are the revenues. These are the revenues that are generated by the city for all the operating funds. There are $127,031,577. The expenditures, again, they're listed here by fund, beginning with the general fund. So the total budget is $126,388,097. So $126,388,097 is the budget expenditures for all the funds. This budget includes the 3% cost of living adjustment for the fire and police collective bargaining employees. It does not include one for the civilian employees. And again, we have discussed the homestead tax levy frozen, that I won't cover it again. Now, we have had requests from the Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts for an additional $75,000 to be, in this case, to be paid by the general fund. This request, like have we mentioned the last few public hearings that we've had with you, beginning with the August 28th, we mentioned this, the $75,000. The city has not included the $75,000 that has been requested by the personnel or the management at Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts. And year to year, we did reduce expenditures by that amount. One of the areas that we need to look very closely is, and we've mentioned this before, is the transfer from the PUB. The higher the utility services that we use throughout the buildings that we service, which includes the museums, includes all the buildings that the city has, there is a charge for those utility usage. So the more utility usage, the lower the cash transfer from the PUB. So it's very important for us to at least reduce the utility usage that we use not only in our buildings, but we also have utility usage for traffic signals, et cetera. The majority, however, are related to utility usage includes not only electric power, but it also includes water and wastewater that is being charged to the city through by a reduction from the transfers. And again, the lower the utility usage, the higher the transfer. For the coming year, we are assuming that we're going to reduce the utility services by a certain amount. So that means we would generate more money for the general fund. But if we use more, our utility usage increases, obviously that $7,035,000 is not going to be there from the PUB. They adjust that every quarter when we get the check or the payment from the PUB. Sales tax, again, it's very vulnerable. Sometimes it's an up and down thing. We just received and I don't have it up there, but we just received the allocation from the State Controller's Office, and for the month of August that's not listed there, we saw an increase of 15.79%. If you look at the column to your right, under actual increase from the prior year, you notice that there were some minuses in that particular column, but you had an increase of 12.34 in March, and once we update the schedule in August, we'll show an increase of 15.79%. At the bottom, you'll see when this schedule was through July, we had a 2.93% increase in sales tax. Well, based on the August distribution, that number is now a 4.03 increase, or we also have a 1.20 increase so again, it's difficult. Sales taxes we use historical data every time we use a sales tax budget. Some months are good, some months are bad. So far, out of the 12 months, we can actually say that we had 2 months that are on double-digit increases. That was in March of 12.34%, and the one that we just currently received of 15.79%. And that's the reason why we looked earlier, we did increase the sales tax budget by a small amount in order to balance the budget. The bridge fund, it's another area that as long as there's continued traffic from our commercial trucks going into Mexico and coming back, we're going to continue to see nice revenues coming from the county, because the county is the one that manages the Veterans Bridge, and we share equally not only on the losses but on the profits. And this we have for 2013. If you look at 2012, we had a 1.6 million. We raised that in 2013 to 1.7. So as long as we maintain that, obviously, if the there's a change, we will be the first ones to come to you on a quarterly basis and let you know whether or not we're going to be meeting those revenue projections for the coming year, 2013. This is the, again, this is 68 cents. This is, again, this are all repeats from what I've already covered. The balanced budget now. This is the 72 cents, which is not going to cover the 72 cents. Again, this is the reserves. If we go with the effective rate, the reserve is 8.6. If we go with the 70, 0613, the reserve is 9.19. If we go with the 72, 1129, it's 1029. We won't know what the actual reserves will be until we get the final numbers through an audit. And that number will come out probably around December once we get all the adjusted entries, and we're pretty sure that our unassigned fund balance will be. Last year, if you recall, we did decrease by about $850,000 from the previous year. We anticipate, again, once the audit is complete for 2012, that our fund balance is going to decrease. Again, we have to emphasize to all of you that we certainly want to maintain a nice reserve fund balance based on the policy that was adopted by the City Commission last November, December of last year. One of the areas that we always look at is personnel. Last 2012, we had a 71%, almost 72, 71.5% of our budget was in personnel. Again, we are a service-oriented entity. We provide a service, so that's where the majority of the expenses are. We've gone up now because of the new additions in personnel. We had 73.19%. Last year, when we ended the fund balance, we had a reserve of 12.59%. We are showing, hopefully, when we get that done with the 2012, that number, I believe it's going to be lower than the 12.59%, but we will let you know once the audit numbers are in. Again, we had a decrease of $880,017 between 2010 and 2011. That's on the reserves, or what we call the unassigned fund balance. And again, this is something we've mentioned to you before. It's always nice to keep reserves because of unexpected expenditures. And the one we always point out is when we have a major storm like a hurricane. Luckily, we have escaped some of those storms. The last one that came down hard on us was the Hurricane Dolly in 2008. We had expenditures of $22.6 million. We got reimbursed 1.4. We're still waiting, and this takes a long time through audits that the Texas Division of Emergency Management made on our city records in March. They told us that we more than likely would get an additional $214,429 from Hurricane Dolly based on the records that we keep. By the way, we do keep excellent records. The reason why we don't get everything reimbursed is because there are some expenditures that we incurred that are not eligible for reimbursement, and the ones that come into being all the time are because of the contracts that we have with the fire and police, that some overtime kicks in as soon as a disaster is declared, even though 40-hour a week have not been met by police, and then you've got the different hours for the firefighters that we, by contract, we have to pay, but the FEMA and Texas Division of Emergency Management will not allow us, so they don't pay for this. And again, there's a percentage of 70% they pay us, not 100%. One of the things that has been requested regarding streets, we wanted to put in the budget, and we have a bike trail. We went ahead and put 10% for sidewalks and 10% from the bike trail, and this comes from the streets. So the streets budget for the coming year, as far as materials, and this is from the general fund, is $664,898. And then we have a distribution to your right. You'll see the distribution that goes to the, we have the bike trail, street materials stay at 589, 418, and then sidewalks 66490. Total in this particular department is 722, 388. Now, we are anticipating in the coming months, and they'll be into fiscal year 2013, to issue some certificates of obligation to pay some of the expenditures that we've already made commitments to. We are going to add streets to the CO, because 655,000 from the general fund is not going to go a long way for street construction or street maintenance. So we, like in the past, we've always issued certificates of obligation for major street construction, and we anticipate that we'll be following this with you in the coming months. I am through with the general fund. This is the Convention and Tourism Fund. We maintain the same allocations to all entities associated with the hotel motel tax, and they're listed here. The Brownsville Convention and Visitors Bureau maintains the same amount, $525,000. The Gladys Porter Zoo, as far as cash, $400,000. Historic Brownsville Museum, and down the line, Historic Brownsville Museum, $45,000. The Tannis, $30,000. Association Society of Performing Arts, $50,000. Camille Playhouse, $25,000. Brownsville Historical Association, $140,000. CAF, $15,000. Costume of the Americas, $22,000. Children's Museum of Brownsville, $48,000. Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts, $50,000. We do have a very small fund balance at the end of 2013 of $141,088, assuming that we generate those revenues that are listed on top, the $1,300,000 for the hotel motel tax. Event center, it's more than likely we'll receive that because it's very, very consistent. It's consistent every year, $350,000. So assuming that we generate the revenues of $22,107,710 and expenses of $2,104,586, you can see that we are actually going into, if you look at the budget for 2013, expenses exceed revenues by $102,876, but we are using a fund balance from October 1st that we anticipate of having, or at the end of September, of $243,000. We have a surplus, and the fund balance will then be decreased to $141,088 because of the $102,876 of expenses exceeding revenues, and that's on the Convention and Tourism Fund. And then community development, it's all grant money. I'm not going to go into it, but it's $4,089,000 in revenues and $4,089,000 expenditures. The non-bonded debt is a small amount, $11,663. Debt service, and then again, this is our second fund that the city has as far as expenditures. The direct revenues of $15,553,965. The majority of this revenues come from the property tax, and then we also have the breakdown of the debt service requirements by principal, interest, and down the line. So we have this fund will have a nice fund balance of $3,000,005. Now we are anticipating to issue some debt in 2013. We'll probably be using some of this fund balance surplus to maintain, at least not to increase the debt service tax rate than what we have right now, 25 cents. We are anticipating, again, issuing COs, and this is for commitments that we have made, or the City Commission has made. The West Rail relocation project, the construction of the Texas Safe Shelter, or the dome at the main library, the hangar at the airport, $1.1 million, and of course the building that we recently purchased of $2.3 million, $8.4. We are thinking, obviously, to add to that number of streets. We will be coming to you once the fiscal year 2013 comes in. Landfill tipping fee has a small, again, fund balance, $538,889. Airport, the city continues to subsidize the airport through a transfer from the general fund. For 2013, the transfer that is in place is $1,664,836, and then the expenditures are listed below, $4,020,368. So we did include enough transfer money from the general fund in order to balance the airport budget, which in this case is about $3,100 more in revenues and expenditures. Again, the bridge fund, we put $1,750,000. We're going to keep our fingers crossed that this will stay, that it will continue, that the traffic at the Veterans Bridge, the commercial truck traffic will continue to generate all this revenues. And if we do, obviously some of this money, all this money goes into the general fund. The motor vehicle parking system fund, it shows a deficit of $6,013, but every year when we look at each fund, we always make sure that the general fund subsidizes each fund to make sure that each fund stays in the black. And so that's a small amount. The public transit generates operating revenues of $1,157,000, total expenditures of $5,301,000. There's a net loss of $4,144,000. The FTA, or the Federal Transportation Administration, contributes 50% of the loss, which is $2,072,039. So the rest, $2,072,039, is contributed by various sources that are listed below. We have advertising revenue, we have in-kind utility services, we have lease revenues. It's something that we've seen an increase in the previous years because of the terminal, the new terminal, multimodal terminal, $287,640. Restaurant rentals, $82,632. And then we also get a state operating assistant grant of $517,303. So the general fund contribution to operate the public transit fund is $864,884. There were other positions requested by various departments. We did not include this in the budget, and the total amount by fund, we include all the funds. Not every fund requested, but some did. It's almost $2,700,000 that are not being funded. Capital is always an increase, or rather a request of capital items, capital expenditures, again, because there's not enough revenue sources to pay for this. Normally what we do is issue COs, general fund, or any other, in this case, general fund cannot afford. So there's $15 million of requests by various funds, by various departments that are not included in this budget. Special projects, it's a big one, $69 million. So you can see there's a lot of need in the city that we are not able to fund because of our revenue stream. That completes my budget presentation on the public hearing. It's a public hearing, Mayor, so
we open up to the public for a hearing. Basically, the administration says the same tax rate as last year, so there's no increase. Any public comment?
Hello, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Commission. My name is Rafael Vela. I've been here before. I represent the Brownsville Museum of Fine Art, and as you saw, one of the slides that passed through that you saw was a request from the museum for $75,000. So I just want to give you a couple of points to kind of clarify what we're asking for and why we're asking for it. Know that at the beginning of every month, because we still have a $640,000 mortgage, our sheets start with a negative $7,000. So in December of every year, we have to go to the bank that owns the mortgage, and the truth is that they've been very, very generous and worked with us over the last several years. But even the banks have responsibilities and they have auditors. So we feel like this is a critical time for the museum. So as you're sifting through all those things, we know how difficult it is to make this decision about budgets. but this is a very compelling place for Brownsville. It's a place that, in a time when we've read about how this commission is very dedicated to downtown revitalization, the museum sits at the entrance to that downtown revitalization initiative. So when the BCIC funded this building, it was a very generous allocation. And our records, our audits show that the property alone, maybe not to the market, but is worth about $2.8 to $2.9 million. And to owe $600,000 on that, that's a great, if you had a home and owed only 600, or a fraction of what the value of that building was in as little as, and done that in 5 years, that's a good thing. So we have assets. But in the meantime, just know that we have embraced our responsibilities to fend for ourselves. And in 2000 alone, just 2000 alone, if you take the $50,000 allocation from the hotel motel tax, we raised $240,000. And we've had to do things, innovative things. For example, the Dali exhibit that we had last year had a value, I think it was $5.7 million. And because of our financial situation, we have to rent the museum out in the midst of all this artwork that's priceless. So we're doing things and trying very, very hard. We've reduced our operations in terms of salaries by 32%. But most importantly, the programs that we have started and will continue and are very dedicated to continuing reach out to the city as a whole. The school district, just the school district alone, has brought just from Brownsville, the school district here, more than 10,000 students in an 18-month period. That's people from all parts of the community. So what we all are, I think, very dedicated to, all the initiatives that we read about and that you all are dedicated to is, the cities around the globe who enjoy a reputation because life is fulfilling there within the city limits. The arts are very much always a part of that. So that's what we're very dedicated to doing. So at the risk of unbalancing your balanced budget, Mr. Gonzalez, and all the hard work that's been done there, please know that as you make this decision, that we need help. We are completely committed to continuing what we're doing. We have a gala next month that's going to be even better. Marcela's sitting over there. If you went to the gala last year, that's our major fundraiser. It's going to be even bigger for all the people of the community. So we're going to continue to do our best to keep the doors open, to raise as much money as we can on the private side, but we need a little bit of help. So again, what we're asking for, the original allocation in 2008 was $250,000. And for various reasons, it really doesn't matter why, but that's been, for the last 3 years, reduced down to $50,000. So our additional $75,000 will bring us up to 50% of that original allocation, which is $125,000. And you saw that $50,000 comes from the hotel motel tax. We're asking for $75,000 to come out of the general fund, but really, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. We just need help to get over this hump and hopefully leave the doors open. And any ideas, we would love to have any ideas you have with regard to how we can more creatively attack this financial situation that we're in. None of us on the board were there in 2008. We took this responsibility as volunteers and not get paid for it, but we have negative $7,000 at the beginning of the month that we have to come up with. So any consideration, any part of this that you can afford us would be greatly, greatly appreciated. I'm not sure if protocol, is this a two-way or one-way?
Actually, I think it's a one-way. These guys can ask you any questions that they wish. Let it be known from, I think on behalf of the commission, I think I speak for everyone here, that Ralph, we appreciate all the efforts that you make. Marcela, you know that we have the greatest of gratitude. I think your salary kind of approaches mine, zero. So we understand that dilemma. Now, I don't know, I have not had a chance to visit this particular, and I think you tried to call me, to be fair with everybody here. I just didn't, I just got back from town. But know that it's not a lack of gratitude. Know that it's not a lack of understanding and appreciation of the arts. And know how much it means to all of us. Now, what we do about it within the confines of restraints of our fiscal responsibilities to City of Hope, I think it's going to be, to everybody's going to have to make their own decisions here. So I don't know exactly how this goes, but appreciate your comments. And if anybody else has any comments?
Have you tried working with grants to see if there's any options other than coming to us before?
Absolutely. And the truth is that we can get the public kind of grants that like soft money grants, programmatic all day long. And we have a wonderful relationship with the ISD that's part of that process. It's the brick and mortar, as you know, on any, that's very difficult to come by. It's the operations that are just a little bit more difficult. But we're going to do our very best to continue.
Thanks.
So
Any other
yes,
comments?
we are trying.
I know you are. I don't think anybody here doubts the efforts. And I do know, I've been there. And so, I mean, we pretty much participate in everything that you guys do. So, any other comments?
Thank you very much for the
Thank you, Ron.
consideration.
I have a question for Pete. Pete, I know you mentioned several projects that are proposed to be funded, and we're getting requests like this one, for example. Now, it's very difficult in our position to have all these projects and then also have our constituents saying their street needs to be fixed, and all sorts of issues which are legitimate. But one thing that worries me is that I think we have a shortage of ambulances. We have a high population rate of diabetes, which need a lot of transfers to dialysis centers, and that kind of ties us up from going to emergency calls. Is there anything that we're doing or planning on getting funding for more ambulances? Or is that another source?
Well, that's another area we'll probably be looking at it when we go into the 2013. As if you recall earlier, we won't know what our fund balance will be, unassigned fund balance would be at the end of September 2012. We normally, what we have in the past, we always, more than likely, will probably we'll have a higher fund balance than what we have in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
The budget that we have right now is based on the revenues and expenses that are currently in the budget. If expenditures are less spent, we spend less than what's in the budget, obviously that kicks the reserves. Otherwise, same thing, if the revenues that, as you saw, sales tax, we are going to generate, hopefully, we have one more month left, but we are going to be generating more revenues in the sales tax area by about $350,000, $300,000. So there are some, once we get a fund balance, the actual fund balance, these are all estimated fund balances we were showing you.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have the actual fund balance, that's something we can look at 2013, or we could also include, since this is a major expenditure, we could also possibly include some of these expenditures in a CO issuance. We have done this in the past, and we're talking about capital costs that are $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 per item. And certainly we can consider that, and that's something that obviously the City Commission is very aware of. We want to make sure that we have the public health up in front as far as make sure that we take care of the public, obviously. So this is something we look at that. But it's not, we haven't had any of all these expenditures that have been requested in there until we start looking at other funding sources. Again, once we go and issue debt, the first thing we go through is the rating agencies, and they look at us very closely. They look at our reserves, they look at our plan, they're very very on top of it. And if they see a decrease, I'm just hope over the last few years, I've always hoping that they'll maintain the same credit rating. We've been very fortunate because if you look at other cities throughout the U.S., there's a lot of cities in the U.S. that are getting downgraded, not upgraded. You don't see any upgrades anymore like we used to have, and that's because of the economy throughout the U.S. But if we can spread this cost, and that's what we do when we issue COs, we spread the cost over several years, we are able to maintain some reserves in the fund balance. But to answer your question on the ambulances, we don't have that in the budget, but we'll something we can look at when we start 2013.
Thank you, Pete. William, did you have something? Yes. Sure, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is William Garza, and I work for La Quinta Inn and Suites in Brownsville. I come to you to ask you, I've been working in the hotel business for about 25 years, and ever since I could remember, the hotel tax revenues, which is supposed to be to putting heads in beds, has been allocated about 75% to the Brownsville Convention Visitors Bureau. 3 years ago, there was a little controversy between the hoteliers, the Brownsville Convention Visitors Bureau, and the previous CEO of the BCVB. And so the City Commission, which majority of you were not here, decided to select a committee to see how they could recommend to the city to allocate the funds. And the BCVB ended up getting, for a 3-year contract, around 40% of the revenues, and which is, like I said, the money is designated to putting heads in beds. 40% is not really going to help us here in the hotel business. We'd like to go back to see if we can get the 70, 75% of the revenues, of the hotel tax revenues that we generate back to the BCVB if possible. That's what I think I have written to some of y'all and talked to y'all, and I think
I got your facts.
it's only fair. We've always received that percentage of money, and because, like I said, 3 years ago, they've been getting only 40%. And I'm not here to work for anybody in particular, but I just think we're really hurting the hotel business, and we would like to see if we can get that monies back.
Okay. Thank you, William.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
If you look at this schedule, Mayor, or City Commissioners, look at the revenue size. We have $1,300,000 from the hotel motel tax. The event center, $350,000 from rentals, and $350,000 from the general fund. $700,000. Event center expenditures, $739,586. So the majority of these event center expenditures doesn't come from the hotel motel tax. It comes from rentals and a transfer from the general fund.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close public comments.
Mayor, I just had a question,
Sure.
and you and I hadn't had a chance to visit. You had been out of town, and I had meant to contact you. We had an item on the agenda for another city, assistant city manager, and for a liaison / assistant to the city commissioner and the mayor's office. What I would like to see is a job description of that individual and what it's going to pertain to, and what it's, for legal purposes, as
Sure.
far as it not interfering with the duties of the elected officials or communication amongst the elected officials, and the responsibilities. Because I had mentioned, I'm sorry you weren't here at the last meeting, but I did mention to the city manager that I've always been under the belief that the liaison to the city commission is the city manager and its attorney, because they're the ones that work for the city commission. So when, like I told you, I haven't seen a job description. All I know is that it was brought up, and that,
Sure.
we're taking money from the general fund, $40,250 for this individual's pay. So what I'm looking at is, if I could see a job description
Sure.
on what the duties of this individual is going to be. Are they going to go through the HR
yeah.
process? Are they going to work with the city manager?
I can tell you real simple, Commissioner. I've been out in many places since I've taken office. I've used my own staff for the last probably 15 months. I've actually used probably three full-time members of my staff. Contrary to perhaps maybe what was done in past administrations, this commission and this mayor position does require and maybe perhaps liaison is not the word, it actually requires a staff person, whether you call it a chief of staff or whether you call it a liaison, whether you call it an assistant, in order for us to maintain the type of, sort of like what Mr. Vela was talking about. You're going to have a city that's keeping up with the times. You're going to have a progressive city. You're going to have a city that is well represented in Texas, in the United States, and in the world. So I think it's important that the city commission all get involved, as well as the mayor, and have the ability to have a staff person that was able to provide us with information when we need it, perhaps maybe serve as the ability to have letters of recommendation, letters of accommodations, letters of perhaps just like we were in Colombia, we were treated extremely well by a couple of mayors that I met from Barranquilla and from Cali. And we'd like to, they presented us with gifts of things to present back to the commission, which are going to be brought forth. And so it's basically a staff person who allows the commission the ability to communicate and collaborate with other cities as we go along and progress to a different level. Okay?
Like I told you, what my concern was, you know, that in essence, in the job description, that there
Well-
would be, you know, like I told you, you know, it's up for approval.
Sure.
From our fund. And all I would like to see is that the fact that, you know, during this individual.
We have a job description.
I think they have a job description.
And we
again,
did change it to assistant to both the mayor and the commission.
For your information and for the public information, you know, the city manager and I probably work together on a daily basis with regards to the things, and hopefully we get a chance to put an office together. I told Charlie he's going to have to live with me, just like they do at the city of San Antonio, where you have the city manager in the same office as you have the mayor, and it's a real good concept. But be more than happy to provide him, Charlie, with whatever he wants, okay?
We have a job description, and I'll share it with your commission.
Okay. Any other public comments? I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. It's going to be required an action item. Do I hear a motion for approval on the
Motion to
budget?
approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On the resolution.
For the resolution? Yeah, all right. Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 5.
Item 5, public hearing and action on first reading of ordinance number 2012-1559, levying ad valorem taxes for tax year 2012 for the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Brownsville, Texas, for fiscal year 2013, providing for the interest and sinking fund of the fiscal year 2013 of the city of Brownsville, Texas, general obligation bonds.
Mayor, members of the City Commission, in your packet, you'll find an ordinance number 2012-1559 that sets the tax rate for the coming fiscal year for the tax year 2012. We are proposing in this ordinance that you adopt the 70 zeros. What is it? The 70. Let me put up here. The 700613 tax rate. And there is going to be in the ordinance, you have a breakdown as to how much goes to the general fund or the M&O, and the other portion that goes to debt service to service all the debt that's listed in the ordinance. Along with that, we're also, like every year, we grant discounts for early payment, a 3% discount for October for those taxpayers that want to pay their property taxes in October. They will get a 3% discount. If they pay in November, by November they get a 2% discount, and if they pay in December, they get a 1% discount. So that's listed in the ordinance, and again, the ordinance is for the 70613. Now, by law, this is the motion that must be made, and I'm going to go back to talk to you about this. Because the effective rate was 68.9621, and we are recommending for you to adopt 700613, or the same tax rate that we currently have. If you look at those two new tax rates, it's a zero increase. But if you look at if you compare between the effective rate and the proposed rate, then there's a 1.59% increase. So by law, this is the motion that must be made by either one of you. And it's listed at the second paragraph. I moved, and so forth. When you adopt the tax ordinance.
Okay.
And this is
and
based
again,
on-
is this because of the wording of the statute? Is that?
That's because of the wording on the statute, Major,
Okay.
25.5B of the
Because the
property
public
tax.
needs to know that there is no increase in the tax rate.
The tax rate is the same,
Okay.
but by law, we need to
You need to have a motion that says,
that says this.
okay. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I guess that's what the law is.
I tell them every year.
Yeah.
Okay, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of .7000613 cents, which is effectively a 1.59% increase in the tax rate.
You read well. Anybody else have a second?
John.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Pete. Now, we'll have a second reading on this, right?
Tomorrow night, we'll have the second reading.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I have nothing, Estella, here as far as public
No, there's no public.
comment.
Adjourn.
There we go.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.